Hello and welcome back to Triclaw Gaming with me, Fletcher.
And I have just gotten back home from watching Jurassic World Dominion. So I thought what I would do is I would make a unscripted video straight away just to collate my feelings about the movie and think about what I actually think of it. Before we get into that, don't forget if you are new here, please don't forget to like, comment and subscribe for more from us at Triclaw Gaming. So, Jurassic World Dominion. I legitimately think this is the worst of any of the Jurassic franchise movies I have ever seen. I think it's worse than Fallen Kingdom. I think it's terrible as a movie in itself for so many reasons. Now, I'm not going to give any spoilers out in this movie, but I legitimately believe that it's terrible. You're free to disagree, obviously, and I will justify myself for why I think this is a terrible film. Let's start with the four basics that I mentioned yesterday. What did I want to see in Dominion? Let's recap actually what I said. I wanted to firstly see less baseless action sequences. I wanted to see a return of good character-based scenes. I wanted to see dinosaurs be returned to their animal nature rather than kaiju or military monsters. I wanted to see the original cast and the new cast have plenty of character moments between them, and I wanted to see the film justify its existence and explain how the end of Fallen Kingdom results in the beginning of Jurassic World Dominion. The film fails on all of these points. Baseless action sequences that do very little other than make Chris Pratt play his Chris Pratt character. And I am so sick of Chris Pratt playing the exact same character over and over again. Yes, he was good in a Marvel movie, but that is all he is good at, and I'm sick to death of seeing him play the exact same role in these films. The action sequences are meaningless, and the film stumbles from one to the other with barely any comprehension of what it's doing. The hope that I had for decent moments between characters that were actually substantial were not there. There was maybe one or two, but they were pretty insubstantial other than that. There were no decent scenes like in Jurassic Park 1 with the dinner scene or the Petticoat Lane scene. There were no decent scenes like we had in The Lost World where they discuss the different points of view between Roland Tembo and the environmentalists, for example. No, it was just one baseless action scene to the next. The dinosaurs are still depicted as kaiju or military monsters. And once more, we have to have this is a minor spoiler, and I don't think it really changes much, but it's a very minor one. They bring back the fucking laser tagging dinosaur thing from the Indoraptor. And the minute they did that in the theatre, I actually said, oh, for heaven's sake, so loudly I got told to shush by the rest of the cinema theatre. Why? Why do we need to keep dragging around the terrible parts of the other two movies in this film? And the laser tagging dinosaur hunting crap is not just the only terrible thing that this film drags around from Fallen Kingdom, not naming any names. The original cast do their best, however, there are no real good scenes between them and the new cast. I mean, in fact, you'd hardly think that the old cast had been to Jurassic Park at all. They share absolutely nothing, really, of their opinions or experiences. Alan Grant seems impressed by Owen Grady's raptor antics, which, considering what Alan Grant goes through, it's outrageous. I don't think they respect the original cast really at all. And I'm sorry, but Jeff Goldblum, the Ian Malcolm in this is just phoning it in. It's not as good as the Ian Malcolm from the other movies. It's not even as good as the Ian Malcolm we saw in Fallen Kingdom. And obviously the returning cast from the new films have all the problems that they already have. Chris Pratt just plays Chris Pratt. Claire Dearing just plays Claire Dearing. And we even have to have the return of characters from Fallen Kingdom which add nothing to the plot. The film fails to justify its existence. the biggest question of how a handful of dinosaurs escaping from a mansion turns into a global problem is barely touched upon. And in fact, this film even fails as a dinosaur movie. Most of the runtime is not dedicated to the dinosaurs at all. I'm not going to spoil it, I'm just going to say Starship Troopers. If anyone wants a better film about a particular subject of this film, Starship Troopers is far superior. I am massively disappointed by this movie, and I was even starting to notice other things as well. Some of the CGI is really poor. There's some really poor quality CGI in the film. The sound editing was all over the show. Sometimes you couldn't hear what characters were saying because ambient noise was too loud. I don't know whether that's a problem with the movie or the cinema I went to. It's difficult to tell. But yeah, some of the CGI was terrible, some of the sound editing was terrible. There were some really horrible snap cuts in certain scenes where it just didn't work. I also have to say a lot of the animatronics did not look as good as the animatronics in JP1. I don't know what it was, just a lot of the animatronics looked awful. In terms of plot, I think it doesn't know what it wants. It doesn't even really have a bad guy, or rather it does, but he's just the most inconsequential bad guy you've ever seen. It feels like the film has gone for quantity over quality in so many aspects, and it doesn't work for me as a dinosaur movie. It doesn't work for me as a decent story movie. It certainly doesn't work for me as a Jurassic franchise movie. The only way I feel that you could find this film entertaining is if you didn't try to think about it at all. Because the minute you try to think about this film with anything more than just haha, it's a dinosaur film, it falls apart. Every element of it falls apart. And by the end of this 2-hour long slog, which is actually, it's boring as well, so terribly boring for a lot of it. By the time you get to the end of the film, nothing feels like it's been resolved in any satisfactory way. Characters don't really get much of a payoff, villains don't really get much of an ending apart from the inconsequential one, who admittedly does get a bit of poetic justice, but it's again quite lackluster. I mean, I was even surprised at the lack of death in the movie, for one, to, again, trying not to spoil anything, and I was so disappointed. And I just want to highlight that it's not cheap to go to a cinema anymore, and this is not a problem aimed necessarily at the movie, but it's something I do want to highlight in mentioning this. It cost me, Dane, and our other housemate, Saber, in total, if we total up all the costs of getting to the cinema, the tickets, the cost of all the popcorn and the drinks, it probably cost somewhere in the region of £100 for 3 of us to go to the cinema and watch this movie. And cinemas complain that people are not coming out to them to watch movies anymore, and they're all dying off. Well, I'm not surprised. Irrespective of the films we are watching being shit, and this is not the only example of terrible movies that I've seen at cinema lately, but the price that you're expected to pay, £15 a ticket to go and see this movie, it's not worth it. And I think this movie has finally shown me that cinemas do not deserve the money. I'm sorry. The movie cinema that I went to today in the middle of Milton Keynes, the screen was covered in pink lines and the movie itself was badly focused. There was creases in the screen that were really obvious and visible. Yeah, I'm not willing to pay £15 on just the ticket price, probably closer to 30 when you include popcorn and drinks. Not willing to pay this money for a crap experience, irrespective of whether the film is good or not. Cinemas need to buck their ideas up. That is not, like I say, that is not something that that goes against Dominion in this case. It's just something I feel is necessary to point out. I can only hope that the expansion for Jurassic World Evolution 2 turns out to be better than this movie did. That's all I can really say about that. I don't know whether I'm even going to bother doing a spoiler review of Dominion, because I think this is going to be one of those really heavy Marmite-like movies. You're either going to like it or you're not. I don't and can't. And I can barely think of anything positive to say about it. I mean, just racking my brains, the music was awful. There were so many cheesy fan references that were just there in order to look at this. This is nostalgic, isn't it? And it's just fan service for all the wrong reasons. The end was lackluster. I'm legitimately disappointed. And like I say, I rate this movie as worse than Fallen Kingdom. And I think I rate Dominion being in my top 5 all-time worst movies I have ever seen, alongside Fallen Kingdom and Watchmen and Star Trek Into Darkness and Star Trek Beyond. That's my opinion. I welcome you to disagree. A lot of you probably will disagree. Let me know in the comments if you've seen the movie, what you legitimately think of it. The rest of you, I'll see you in the next video. Until then, stay safe and goodbye.